ready?
Go ahead.
Okay, my understanding is incident began with a 911 call from a relative of this Mr. Melton's from Maryland. Apparently Mr. Melton had gotten in contact with this relative in Maryland and said that was saying his goodbyes, that he was going to take his own life. So that triggered us being dispatched. We started heading out to the house. By the time we got there, he had already left the house on, I think it's St. Thomas Court in DeLand. He left the house and he was mobile, so we started pinging his phone. Deputy sheriffs were able to pick him up and start following him, and then it was a lengthy kind of follow. They attempted stop sticks. We ended up here at the hospital. We've been here for about 4 hours. So it was a team effort. I really want to thank Sheriff Chitwood and Volusia County Sheriff's Department for all they did this morning. And personally thank Sheriff Chitwood. He did a great job with Tim Melton. Tim Melton's somebody that we're familiar with. We had a similar incident about 3 years ago where he was barricaded in his house. So that's about all I have. And
are we talking about a former DeLand cop?
yeah, my understanding is he was a former DeLand police officer, worked here for the DeLand police for a couple of years. I think he's also a military veteran, and I think from what I gathered from some of the deputies, he worked with their explosive ordnance folks. So he has some knowledge, very knowledgeable about ordnance, explosive devices, and firearms.
Did you have any on him today?
He did have several firearms that he recovered from the car. No ordnance.
Did he hurt himself at all? Did he hurt himself at all?
He did not. We believed that he had had a self-inflicted gunshot wound, but it turns out he did not do that. Apparently, he said that he had. I can tell you, about 3 years ago, he did self-inflict. Had actually shot himself in the stomach. But this time, we thought he had shot himself in the chest, but it turns out he did not.
And he at one point showed up at City Hall, right? And he had to lock down?
He was mobile, and so he was across the street from City Hall. So when I got that information, I called the city manager and just put them in a lockdown. But then he quickly became mobile again and moved away from City Hall.
Sheriff, would you mind sharing some of your thoughts about what was going on when you first started talking to him?
Yeah, Mr. Melton was a 21-year veteran of the United States military. He is very, very close to a number of my deputies in training with ordnance and firearms. He had at least 5 firearms on him, including one high-powered rifle. I can't say enough about what everybody did. Everybody did what they were supposed to do. We stop-stick the car, and negotiations went on. He established a rapport with Adam Clausen, Deputy Clausen. They were in the service together, and Jeff Wingard, and eventually myself. And we were eventually able to talk him into surrendering. Must be true. He tossed out of the window about 4 firearms, and he kept one on him. And then eventually we were able to get him to open the door. When he opened the door, we were able to reach in, seize the firearm, and seize him. He's being treated here for some injuries where he was hit with beanbag rounds. Obviously, he'll be Baker acted. The most important thing here is you had a heavily armed individual who was bent on suicide, and through the joint efforts of the DeLand Police Department, the Volusia County Sheriff's Office, we were able to end this incident without a shot being fired. Nobody's hurt, and everybody's going home safely. That's the most important thing that came out of this. And obviously, we took our time, and we did some unconventional things. There was a point in time where myself and Deputy Clausen went up. He wanted to change his beneficiary, and we allowed him to change his beneficiary because he was saying that he was going to end his life. He was going to die today in that parking lot.
Sheriff, did he share any reason and just any sort of where?
Yeah.
Anything you can share?
Yeah, I think a lot of it has to do with his in-theater experience in Iraq. I think when you look at his military record, and obviously Deputy Clausen had spent time in the same theater, and I learned what he went through there. So I can understand why he was in the position he is again. clearly there's a lot going on there from our returning folks from battlefields that I don't think any of us understand. And I think that's where the connection with Deputy Clausen was, because Clausen has been over and fought in Iraq and Afghanistan. So when they talk to one another, it's something we don't understand. But those two communicated very, very well together. And eventually we all earned his trust enough to get close enough to be able to get him to open the car door, to be able to take the last weapon off of him and then get him inside the hospital for help. But, you know, I cannot say enough about Deputy Clausen and Deputy Sergeant Wingard. Those guys did, for the hours we were out here, they're the ones who did the bulk of the negotiations. You know, he wanted to talk to me because I was the sheriff and I was the one that could make decisions, he thought, by giving orders. But those guys did a phenomenal job. And again, everybody's going home safe. You know, it wasn't the most conventional way of handling a barricaded person, but you got to do what you got to do to make it work and send everybody home safe.
How hard is it to listen to somebody when they're in that state and just literally like?
You know, what's difficult is there's a point where there was a point where he was beyond reason in there. There was a point where I had to make a decision. Do I allow him to do his last will and testament and kill himself, or do we do something to provoke him to get out of the vehicle and engage us in a gun battle? You know, we knew he was heavily armed, and he was. We knew that he had multiple handguns and one long gun in there. So what was the decision to make? The decision I made was, we'll play this out as long as we can. The heat's on our side, and if he's going to kill himself, he's going to kill himself. The last thing I wanted to do was get out of there, either get into the hospital or charge at the land police and county sheriff's office. And for us, it worked out. I think the heat was on our side, and the longer you talk, the longer the odds are in your favor.
Sheriff, you're just back from COVID. Yesterday, briefly today, you know, and not to turn this to that, but, you know, in your condition, were you even thinking maybe I shouldn't even go out, I'm not strong enough, whatever, or did you feel obligated because it's going down in our county?
No, I was just finishing up my morning bike ride when the phone rang. I didn't even get a chance to get a shower. I threw clothes on and came right out. So, that's what we do for a living. But I mean, I think when you look at it and you go back and debrief, I think when you look at what DeLand PD handled this, and you look at the way we handled it, working hand in hand, nobody's hurt. I mean, look, nobody's hurt. And that's what you want in these things. You know, you gotta get a little lucky, you gotta be good, and sometimes you gotta be unconventional, and all those three things work to our benefit today.
Obviously, you were up close and personal with the other deputies and this gentleman. Having gone through, you know, your recovery with COVID, is that changing how you deal with these situations at all, wearing masks, staying distance, or it's just that person's a priority at that point?
For all of us here, the priority was that he didn't kill himself or kill anybody else or hurt anybody else. That was the number one priority going in here. And if you go back and listen to the radio tapes and you see, you know, the video, body camera video we put out, you'll see that great pains were taken not to force the hand where he's going to get out and to try to do suicide by cop or try to kill a cop or try to get into the hospital and take somebody hostage. And at the same token, saying that you don't really want him to end his life. You know, that the sun's going to come out. It's like somebody said, you don't feel important now, you're going to feel important at 5 o'clock tonight. You're going to feel important on Wednesday. And your family's going to feel important on Friday. So it worked out. You know, to our back. I hope that this time he gets the help that he needs. It's like the chief said, he's had it before. You know, 3 years ago this happened, and it's a cry for help. And hopefully he gets the help that he needs. After all, he did serve our country for 21 years.
Also, Sheriff, what you guys are saying is that possibly a flashback from the war days when they would do this?
No. What he said was that he was tired of being tired from dealing with the PTSD and the mental anguish that he went through in theater. That's what he was saying. And he just couldn't take it anymore, and he just wanted to end his life. And he said he screwed it up before, he wasn't going to screw it up this time.
You mentioned you had, Sheriff, how did those happen?
Yeah, when he got out of the car, one of the plans was he told us that when he stepped out of he didn't want to kill himself in the truck because he left the truck to his son, so he didn't want to make a mess. He wanted to step out, and he was going to step out and shoot himself. The plan was when he stepped out to try to hit him with less lethal, dislodge the firearm, put it down, and that would be one chance to save him from killing himself. Didn't exactly work as planned.
They struck him. He just.
Yeah, he didn't feel
he
it.
didn't feel it, so, which was pretty amazing. Yeah, you know, the PTSD, I guess that's a little personal for me. I had a grandfather who served in World War II, and back then they called it battlefield fatigue, and I watched him as a young man struggle with that all the way to the end of his life, and just struggle with depression, anxiety. His nerves were shot. So when the sheriff's telling you about that, I think we need to really think about our veterans. Many of them just struggle every day with those kind of feelings. So it seems like that's what's going on today.
He's not a bad guy. I mean, he's really very educated, well-spoken. He knows, I mean, this guy's not a criminal. This guy's not a bad guy. You know, he did what he had to do for our nation, and now, you know, we see a lot of these things happen all the time. This time it ended on a good note for us. Nobody got hurt. Nobody got killed. He's getting the best attention he can get here in the hospital.
So obviously no charges. This is a full-on Baker Act.
He's going to be Baker Acted. Obviously, we confiscated his weapons. You know, one of the weapons had a silencer on it, and I think there was another 3 or 4 additional handguns. So that's where we are.
And anything that could prevent him from getting these weapons back?
Yeah, I think, well, the Sheriff's Department's going to take the lead, and they're going to, you know, file for RPO, and hopefully we'll get an order that we can take those guns and, you know, keep them from him. But there's a process, as you know, a court process. Hopefully then he'll also get the mental health he needs at the same time. But yes, they're going to follow the necessary paperwork and try to seize all of his guns. Obviously, we have them now.
What we have now, we're trying to get a search warrant, get in the house, see if there's any more guns. He does own a shop not that far from here that he does make firearms and ammunition. So
no charges are expected in today's case.
we don't see anything. You know, he didn't threaten to kill a cop. He didn't threaten to kill anybody but himself. He didn't threaten to take anybody hostage. He didn't do anything like that. All he wanted to do was get his affairs in order and take his own life. And obviously, you know, as this went on, we were talking, saying it's clear he doesn't want to do that.
We believe he makes firearms, he builds them. As far as ammunition, he probably is, you know, if he makes firearms, he probably does reloads, like that, but I don't know for that. But I do know he builds firearms. Yeah, I think he does have a relationship with another former command officer, Busick. I did hear that. There used to be, I'm not so sure what it is now.
And did he ask for the one specific deputy that played a crucial role here that had served with him, or did you guys know the connection?
No, what had happened was one of my lieutenants knew that they had a close relationship. So Deputy Clausen was teaching at the academy today. So we were able to get him out. And then it seems that once he started talking to Deputy Clausen, you could see that there was some movement. You know, he talked to Deputy Clausen about his last will and testament and what he wanted, and he wanted to talk to me to make sure that I would allow these things to happen. And even there was a point in time where me and Deputy Clausen walked up and allowed him to sign over or change his beneficiary, talked with him, and then Sergeant Wingard had a really good rapport with him, and at the end, he requested the 3 of us come up, and he would surrender. The 3 of us came up to his window because he'd already been shot by the beanbag. And he opened the door and said he was going to shoot himself, and Deputy Clausen was able to reach right in and grab the handgun, and then Sergeant Wingard was able to pull him out of the car, and that was the end of that. I just got to sit there and watch him.
Did he seem thankful at that point?
He did. He shook, when we got him inside of the hospital, he shook all of our hands and thanked us.
He shook your hand while you were standing at the touch.
Several times he shook my hand, but when we got in the hospital, he said, I want to shake your hand, Sheriff. I want to shake your hand, Adam. You have always been a true friend to me. And Sergeant Wingard, he had done some work for our motorcycle rodeo, and he remembered Sergeant Wingard from that. He didn't realize who it was till after we got him in the hospital. He shook Sergeant Wingard's hand as well, thanked him for listening to him and for helping him.
It's gotta make you feel good.
Makes you feel good. In a way you feel good, in a way you feel horrible. In a way it makes me feel horrible that somebody gave 21 years of their life to defend this country, and yet we can't give these folks the proper treatment when they come home. It's like they're discarded. And then we're left to deal with it, with the residual effects from it. It makes me feel good that it ended with nobody getting hurt. You know, and like I said, Deputy Clausen has an extremely close relationship with this gentleman, which I feel good for him.
Yeah.
You know, the last thing I wanted to have to deal with was after Deputy Clausen negotiating with him for 3.5 hours is have the guy kill himself, and now Deputy Clausen have to worry about him now.